Cosmic Beacon 23 is located at the crossroads of star routes and, like its terrestrial counterparts, helps spacecraft navigate the intricate passages of the universe. They are massive and impressive, yet operated by a single individual. One day, the beacon's keeper receives a signal from an approaching ship called the Crest. However, following a recent malfunction, it is unsafe to dock at the beacon. The keeper attempts to forbid the docking, but the system refuses to comply. The Crest crashes into dark matter and shatters into pieces. The man manages to salvage only one escape capsule, in which a woman is found. When she regains consciousness, the keeper provides her with medical assistance and then informs her of her ship's demise. It turns out that she was alone aboard the Crest. The keeper offers the woman a meal. Aster gladly agrees. Immediately, she notices an outdated floating drone and is pleased by the encounter. However, for some reason, the drone cannot speak. The keeper states his name, Solomon, but it turns out that Aster already knows him by that name, having arrived here after receiving his reports on the discovery of unknown minerals. The man appears confused but quickly regains his composure, declaring that the beacon's AI malfunctioned and he does not know the exact location of the stones. So he advises his guest to take a break for now. Aster leaves and calls her artificial assistant, Harmony. But Harmony hasn't fully booted up yet after the explosion, so Aster begins to explore the beacon's premises on her own. Meanwhile, the keeper voices his complaints to the drone for not reporting Aster's arrival. Thus, if he ends up having to eliminate the woman, the drone will be held responsible. In the meantime, she finds a notebook with records and, judging by the drone's light signals, realizes that the man who met her is not Solomon. He then shows her the way to where the samples are kept. At this time, the keeper sits by the generator of gravitational waves, whose influence on a person induces euphoria, and watches a picture of an earthly beacon amidst a stormy sea, which in his eyes seems to come alive. Aster finds two unknown stones in the cabin, but the drone leads her further. She discovers a panel that displays data from all the beacon's video cameras and requests to see all the files related to Solomon's discovery. Aster watches a video in which the keeper appears as a completely different person. Immediately, the one who saved her appears. Realizing that she has learned everything, the man states his name, Halen, and the real Solomon had stolen his ship and flown away with it. Aster senses a threat and attacks Halen with a knife, but he easily overpowers her. When the woman regains consciousness, she finds herself chained to the floor. Just at that moment, Harmony activates, and when Halen comes to the holding area, the woman is nowhere to be found. He searches for her throughout the ship, but finds Harmony inspecting the airlock. The man approaches her and ends up caught in a trap. Aster is convinced that the man is a deserter hiding on the beacon. This is further confirmed by the drone, which the woman calls Bart. It turns out that Halen deliberately disabled the speech function while Harmony reactivated it, and now the drone serves as a witness, asserting that Helen killed his former keeper, Solomon. However, for some reason, Aster does not believe the accusation, although she is in no hurry to release the man. She and Harmony review the video of Solomon once again and find him to be an unpleasant character. Later, Harmony confirms that the discovered stones are a new element, unlike anything found in the entire known universe. Only according to Solomon's reports, there should be many more stones. While monitoring Aster's progress, Bart is delighted that an official from ISA, Interstellar Space Administration, will be able to punish the keeper's murderer. He undertakes another scan of the beacon in search of images when Harmony reports that she has received a signal from an ISA evacuation ship which will arrive here in 40 hours. Then, Aster turns to her captive, Halen, for help. He hears sounds and experiences horrifying visions of his last space mission, during which a new cosmic mineral flashed by, likely the cause of his post-traumatic stress disorder. Aster prepares some medicine and again heads to the soldier. But when she enters the airlock, Bart locks her in together with Halen as he believes the soldier cannot be trusted. Then the woman recounts her quarantine on one of the exoplanets. After hearing this, Bart opens the door for her, and Helen drinks the medicine and indicates the place where the stones might be stored. But in return, the woman must release him. Halen shows her a button that opens a passage to an outdated antenna. Upon opening it, Aster sees a shaft filled with crates, and together they head into an unexplored section. However, there Helen begins to have a panic attack, and in horror he runs away. Aster administers him a sedative and once again locks him in the airlock. She herself returns to the shaft and soon discovers the minerals. She examines the stone, marveling at its peculiarity, while due to the debris from the crest, a spaceship unexpectedly appears. Aster prepares to open fire, but the newcomers penetrate the airlock and break through to the beacon's lower level. Arriving individuals call themselves the Wreckers. Once aboard, the group's commander, Battle, orders technician to hack into the beacon system. After inspecting the newcomers, Aster hides a packet of stones while listening to Bart's suggestion to disable the lower level's air system. However, the woman reminds him about Hallen, who is also locked up there. Harmony identifies among the guests the warrior Bigface, who belongs to one of the mining camps in the outer settlements and is known for her ruthlessness. Meanwhile, Technician, into whose body a special probe has been implanted, enters the beacon system and blocks Bart. Now they can see the entire beacon, and they immediately spot Aster and Harmony. The youngest member of the group, Chick, notices Halen, who is trying to persuade a guy not to betray him, but that guy is too loyal to the leader. Halen is dragged out of the airlock and explains about a large sum of qubits hidden in the beacon's safe. However, while the wreckers are busy hacking the hatches, the ISA ship will already have arrived. Therefore, he proposes to open the upper decks for them, on the condition that they let him settle scores with Aster. Technician disables Aster's cameras so that she can no longer control the situation. Harmony realizes that Bart is blocked and advises Aster to arm herself. Meanwhile, Hallen, having deceived Chick, escapes from observation through a secret passage in the panels, and Harmony continues her identification of the guests. The gang leader, Battle, is a former soldier who was disgracefully discharged from the army for brutal crimes. He immediately attacks Chick, prompting Kennedy to intervene on his behalf since the boy turns out to be her son. At that moment, Technician summons everyone to a screen to witness Helen's retribution against Aster. As he reaches the upper deck, he immediately launches into an attack, but during the fight, he claims he came to save her and asks Harmony to disrupt the video signal. After the AI complies, she announces that she has found data on Kennedy. It turns out that the woman was once a minister in the Allow colony. About 30 years ago, due to a malfunction of their beacon, supplies couldn't be delivered to the colonists, leading to mass deaths and destruction. Aster asks Harmony to contact Kennedy. Meanwhile, Hallen heads to the second level, where his weapons are stored, and connects to the charging station via a chip implanted in his body. It turns out the man had risen to the rank of sergeant, and during his service, he received several implants that turned him into a super soldier. At the same time, the argument between Kennedy and Battle escalates into a fight. Chick steps in on his mother's behalf, ordering her to comply. Aster notices a stiletto among Hallen's belongings and takes it from him. Battle, who believes that Hallen is on their side, orders him to finally open the hatches. When this happens, the wreckers ascend to the upper deck. However, Harmony closes the hatches, splitting the group. Kennedy and Chick end up together. The boy suggests finding the qubits to please the commander, but the woman is convinced that it isn't about money and proposes to search for that something. Meanwhile, 3 bandits head to the server room to disable all the hatches. At the same time, Chick notices a photo of their entire family on a screen and confesses that he wants to earn respect now that this is their life. His mother dissuades him from killings that will bring him nothing good. Then the son accuses her of having killed millions and points a weapon at her, but Kennedy takes away his pistol and orders him never to do that again. Meanwhile, Technician connects to the system through the server room and gains access to the doors. Aster contacts Kennedy and urges her to prevent a massacre. It turns out that Aster works for the same company as the wreckers, QTA. In that case, an attack makes no sense. While Aster ponders what she has heard, Kennedy finds a sack of stones, and Hallen, also having overheard the conversation, realizes that Aster came to steal Solomon's stones. He promises to take Battle's ship. Fully charged, Hallen launches his attack. He kills Technician and hurls Bigface into a corridor where gravity is disabled. While he fights with her, Battle fires his sound pistol, but Aster shoves him, and he too is sent flying into a pipe. Aster then goes to Kennedy and Chick. She confesses that her colony went through the same ordeals and that she survived only thanks to her mother, so she fully understands their feelings. At that moment, Hallen kills Bigface but is himself felled by a shot from Battle. Aster is just persuading the mother and son not to flee with the stones. The mother sends her son to the ship, but Battle intercepts him and orders new charges for the weapons. Meanwhile, Kennedy explains that her son is angry with her for not having been able to save the entire family. Aster gives her enough qubits to buy tickets and get far away from QTA's attention and asks for a favor. Later, Battle sees Aster and tries to catch up with her. Hallen regains consciousness and stops Chick. Kennedy joins them and announces that Aster has made a deal. With the money received, they will take Hallen with them and transport him to a safe place. However, the man refuses to fly without Aster. Meanwhile, Aster lures Battle into the airlock chamber. A quarrel then erupts between mother and son. Chick wants to earn Battle's respect and absolutely refuses to follow his mother, whom he holds responsible for the family's death. During the argument, the son pulls out his gun again and shoots his mother. For a moment, he is stunned, but quickly regains himself and leaves. At that moment, Battle realizes that he had been chasing Harmony. Seeing the real Aster, he pounces on her, but the woman kills him with her dagger. At the same time, Chick discards his weapon and, after gathering the qubits, escapes from the beacon, while Harmony successfully reactivates Bart. Aster and Harmony watch Halan as he prepares to bury bodies in space and discuss the reaction he had to the discovered stones. Later, Aster shows Halan her pendant, which bears exactly the same mark as the stone she found. Aster explains that the pendant was passed down from her mother, while Halan confesses that he always imagined himself as the hero in a painting depicting an earthly beacon. Aster tries to connect all the mysteries of the beacon into one chain, and Halan longs to vanish somewhere and live in peace. Then Aster promises that she will give him a life wherever he desires. Halan is touched by her sincere words, but now they need to check issues with the lighting. Meanwhile, Harmony explains to Bart that she has reviewed all the videos concerning Solomon and is convinced that Halan did not kill the Keeper. He is just testing the system when he is attacked by a woman in an armored suit. They fight for a while until Aster intervenes. It turns out that this is Cooley, Aster's colleague from QTA. Aster reveals that Halan saved her life twice and notices that Cooley clearly knows about the Wrecker's attack, yet she still shows her the stones. However, Cooley dislikes the news that Halan is aware of the stones. At that moment, the man reports that dark matter is approaching the beacon. If they don't leave immediately, they'll have to wait at least 4 days. Aster suggests not to rush, and Cooley begins asking questions about Halan's past. It becomes clear that these two do not trust each other. After the conversation, Cooley demands that Bart provide her with all the data on Halan. Meanwhile, Aster shares her suspicions with Halan. After all, Cooley wasn't surprised upon hearing about the destruction of her ship, but he cuts the conversation short. Later, Aster shows Cooley the drawing on the stone and compares it with the pendant. Her colleague is surprised, not understanding what it means, but she promises to figure it out, although she senses that Aster doesn't want to hand the stones over to the corporation. Aster leads her to the generator and, as Cooley relaxes there, agrees to help Halan hide. However, Cooley secretly sends a request to QTA asking for information on Halan. What she discovers turns her against him. Meanwhile, Aster confides in Harmony her doubts. Why would she, the best employee, suddenly be targeted for death without sparing the ship? Ignoring the AI's advice, she unfastens her capsule. Later, over dinner, Cooley recounts to Halan the story of their first meeting and closeness, wounding Aster with her judgments. But when Halan tries to interrupt, Cooley suddenly reveals his secret. It turns out that he abandoned his team during an attack on the planet DX-113. All the soldiers perished. While Cooley hurls insults at him, Halan recalls the battle and his colleague Gashad, with whom he shared a special bond. Later, a tense conversation unfolds between Aster and Halan, during which Halan admits his guilt. In the evening, Cooley confesses to Aster that she received orders to eliminate Halan before departure because she was convinced he had come for the stones. Then Aster reveals that she found 2 extra oxygen canisters in her rescue capsule, indicating that the explosion was premeditated. Cooley is forced to admit that they had to do it because they were sure that Solomon wouldn't let her board without a fight. The company fabricated the accident so that Solomon would rescue her. Only then did Halan appear, who truly saved the woman. Cooley ends the conversation, and to keep Aster from interfering further, she sedates her with a patch. Meanwhile, Halan goes to check the messages that Cooley sent to the company, but when he tries to open the doors, a surge of electricity knocks him out. As Cooley leaves, Aster, summoning her last strength, asks Harmony for help. After receiving a stimulant, she catches up with Cooley, who is already raising her weapon, only to have Cooley plunge a knife into her back and then strangle her to ease her departure. The action shifts 180 years into the past, to a time when one of Beacon 23's first keepers, Sophie, was on duty. The woman was already in her later years, and her personal AI assistant, Bart, took care of her, even calling her mom. One day, Bart reports that a repairman is arriving at the beacon, a repairman she never ordered. Sophie meets the man at the airlock and checks his documents, which are so pristine and impeccable that they raise suspicions. Still, Sophie permits him to do his job. However, Bart is unable to help him because she has put him to sleep. Startled, the repairman thinks that the woman is behaving strangely. Sophie then escorts him to the system console, from where he contacts his own AI, Hope, and asks to wake Bart up. But Bart does not respond to her requests. Instead, he immediately replies to Sophie's call, and she instantly recognizes Milan Aleph, the IT director of QTA. She doesn't understand why he needs this. Bart asks Sophie to stay alert, while she orders him not to stick his head out for now. Later, Sophie invites the repairman for tea, and he remarks that she has arranged the beacon like an old-fashioned house. In response, Sophie laments that the handwork has now been lost. The curtains cover the constantly twinkling stars, yet do not interfere with her duties. She talks about her sons and inquires about his family, but he confesses that he hasn't been in touch with his daughter for a long time. Milan gives her a gift, and as she opens it, she calls the man by his real name. He apologizes for the deception and confesses that he loves beacons very much, though his presence tends to unsettle people. Sophie examines a fabric woven from fibers belonging to hundreds of different star systems, a fabric that is, in fact, poisoned. She inhales the toxin and loses consciousness. Milan removes the key beacon from around her neck and laments that Sophie has turned his beloved creation into a rural house. He turns to Bart for information, but Bart is concerned about Mom's condition and agrees to cooperate only in exchange for an antidote for Sophie. Milan wants to know about any unexplained visitations to the beacon, something Bart should be aware of, but the AI is stubborn. Moreover, it turns out he too has the ability to help the woman. He manufactures a universal antidote that takes the form of a fly, flies to Sophie's body, and enters her, causing her to wake up. Bart informs her about what is happening, yet for some reason, Sophie forbids Bart from calling for help. At that moment, Hope discovers in Bart's memory the files Milan needs, but Milan's condition worsens, so he does not attempt anything when he sees Sophie revived. The woman quickly deduces that he has arrived because the first beacon keeper had seen an artifact, the nature of which is unknown, but whose energetic power is incredible. Milan wants to use it to eliminate all human frailties within himself, such as the body's need for food and water. Sophie is unimpressed by his ambitions, yet Milan believes that the artifact represents the horizon between the physical and the metaphysical, and that by undergoing a synthesis, any person can become a god. Sophie is surprised by his blindness. Having set out to unlock the secrets of the universe, he failed to understand his own daughter. This infuriates Milan, for he thinks about all of humanity, but Sophie reminds him that he does not know what the outcome will be and that he might cause harm. Suddenly, Bart informs Sophie that a supply ship is approaching the beacon, having requested permission to dock. Sophie tries to establish communication with the ship and realizes that Bart lied. The AI confesses that he intended to cut off the oxygen on the beacon and kill Milan, whom he considers a madman. However, Sophie forbids him from doing so, but Bart asks her to put on a spacesuit and hide until it's all over. Then Sophie suggests killing them both, because she cannot live having participated in such a killing. Bart agrees not to take any action. Sophie reports the situation to Milan. He cannot understand why Sophie won't disable Bart permanently, but she believes that he will listen to her. Sophie tries to explain to Milan the consequences of his endless ambitions and points out how unhappy he is in his pursuit of the artifact. Milan seems to heed her words and even agrees to take her with him. Instead, Sophie offers him the chance to stay with her at the beacon. However, Milan rejects the proposal. Yet when he is about to leave through the airlock, Bart catches him and cuts off the oxygen supply. Sophie can only watch as Milan dies of asphyxiation. Before his death, he gives Hope one final command. Sophie is outraged by Bart's actions and refuses to speak with him. After some time, Sophie gathers her strength and accuses Bart of murder for having destroyed their happy home. Suddenly, a man dressed in black appears on the beacon, Milan. Sophie mistakes him for a ghost, but the man introduces himself as Aleph. He explains that this is his metaphysical form and that his search for the artifact will continue. Sophie mourns his inability to understand how this will ruin the future of humanity. After all, many have not yet learned how to be human. Moreover, the artifact can be seen only by a human. Aleph offers her a partnership, but Sophie refuses once again. He disappears, and a dejected Sophie sits down at her spinning machine. She puts on her headphones and silences Bart's voice, choosing to leave him in complete solitude. The action returns to the present. Although Aster is deeply affected by Cooley's murder, she does not regret her actions after learning about the staged explosion of her ship, and she refuses to return to QTA. When Harmony points out that Cooley's military-grade combat suit records information on all of his activities, Aster asks her to retrieve data about Holland's previous mission using his suit. Holland is unaware of this and appears as he hears Gashad's voice in a transmission. To recall exactly what happened, he reviews the recording together with Aster. It turns out that Helen inhaled the same glowing blue dust on DX-133 that was present in the stones discovered by Solomon. This means he did not flee the battlefield, but rather deliberately headed here. Their conversation is interrupted by a message about an approaching QTA transport vessel. Aster decides to flee on Cooley's ship, which Holland is capable of piloting. They begin gathering their belongings, including the stones. Then Holland experiences a prolonged hallucination in which he sees Gashad aboard the beacon. She kisses him and says that her last thought before death was that Helen couldn't just abandon his crew. She tries to tell him something important, but her words become distorted and meaningless. Holland attempts to pull himself together when he hears a voice emanating from the blue stone. The voice insists that both he and Gashad were together on that planet. Then the man begins to hear many voices until, finally, he returns to reality. In his search for Aster, Holland discovers that he has been expelled from the beacon. Thanks to his implants, he can remain in the open space for almost 3 minutes. Aster responds to the alarm signal and rescues him. Harlan explains his hallucinations to her, prompting Aster to conclude that the stones want to tell him something. However, Harmony confides to Aster that a brain scan of Harlan reveals traces of a virus he inhaled. The virus causes hallucinations rather than pursuing some higher purpose, as Aster believes. Realizing that without Bart, the man could not have opened the entry airlock, Aster tries to wrest control of the beacon from the AI. In self-defense, Bart repeats that Harlan killed Solomon and offers to let her hear his account. Solomon discovered samples of an unknown mineral not far from the beacon. He diligently worked on cataloging every detail before reporting his revolutionary discovery to the scientific community. However, Harlan's appearance changed everything. It turns out that when Harlan asked to be let in, Solomon denied him access. But Bart disobeyed Solomon and opened the airlock because Harlan's oxygen level was critical. That night, Harlan caught Solomon attempting to call for help from ISA, seized his ring, cutting off his connection, and assumed control of the beacon. Due to Solomon's constant objections, Harlan chained him in his cabin. Yet he treated him like a man, even though Solomon disliked being a prisoner on his own beacon. While discussing the arrival of a military man at the beacon, Solomon argues that Harlan remembers everything incorrectly. In fact, he had traversed an enormous galactic distance to reach the beacon. Bart proves this by showing the military man a map of his route. Harlan begins to feel ill, and Solomon realizes that he is somehow connected to the stones. Therefore, when Harlan loses consciousness, the Keeper seizes the opportunity to free himself from his chains and escape. When Harlan regains consciousness, Solomon is already boarding his ship. Harlan immediately tries to stop him. After all, he never refueled the ship with oxygen, but Solomon departs, hurrying toward his own demise. Now, having obtained proof of Harlan's innocence, Aster assumes that QTA will drop all charges against him and is prepared to leave Harlan on the beacon while she escapes with the stones. Harmony tries to dissuade Aster from this plan. Meanwhile, Harlan is once again overcome by a hallucination in which Harmony begs him to fulfill her request in order to save Aster. Later, a stone begins speaking to him and orders him to go to the antenna compartment. Harlan opens the hatch, and all the stones fly out into space. They batter the hull, causing damage to the beacon, which forces Aster to call upon the AI for help. Harmony determines that the stones are orbiting the beacon, but she does not understand what governs their trajectory. Then suddenly they arrange themselves into a beautiful, dancing pattern that Aster has seen before. The story returns to the past, when a man arrived at Beacon 23 with the intention of blowing up the structure. He attaches explosives to Bart's systems and starts the countdown. However, when he tries to leave, Bart strikes up a conversation with him, suggesting that the bomber belongs to an organization called the Column, whose members are also searching for the artifact in order to unravel the mystery of the glowing stones. Bart mentions relics and promises to reveal things that even the Column does not yet know. The AI begins its story with an account of Dr. Rhee Avalon, the first keeper of Beacon 23. It was she who endowed Bart with his voice and his name. Rhee was born on Earth, along the coast, and she perceived space as the greatest ocean. It was she who hung that picture of the beacon in front of the generator. At first, the alliance between QTA and ISA worked on installing beacons that could detect dark matter in space and help ships navigate the universe. After the work began, Rhee started noticing a strange phenomenon around the beacon, a glowing mass flying around the structure. Yet strangely, Bart's detection systems couldn't register it. Rhee observed this phenomenon intently. Soon she began experiencing auditory hallucinations in the form of steamboat whistles. And once again, Bart failed to capture anything. His concern grew. One day, Rhee spent 27 hours in the tower and only came to after Bart activated the alarm. She asked Bart to depict that nothing he had seen in space, and when the phenomenon occurred again, she requested that the sensors be directed to where she was looking. He complied, after which it became clear that there was indeed an object in front of the beacon. Rhee even managed to calculate the time of its next arrival. One day, she dreamed that she was stepping out onto the balcony of a seaside lighthouse, and when she woke up, it turned out that she had almost stepped into space without protective gear. She immediately donned a spacesuit and ventured into space, and she vanished without a trace. Bart searched the entire sector, but never found her. The bomber, whose name is Care, doesn't understand why Bart told him this story, but Bart suggests that the relics of the Column are produced by Rhee's artifact. He then tells another story, this time about a pair of keepers. After some unsuccessful experiences with lone keepers, it was allowed to send pairs to the beacons, keepers who were romantically involved. However, beforehand, they had to prove their infertility. Grisha and Farut were convinced they would never have children. Yet upon arrival, Grisha discovered that she was pregnant. At the moment when she informed her husband about it, Farut noticed bright flashes outside the beacon's porthole, which Bart, as always, failed to record. Despite Bart's warnings, the couple decided to keep the child. A girl was born, and they named her Parim. Bart never imagined what place this little girl would eventually occupy in his electronic heart. Her parents, in order to avoid punishment, decided to leave the beacon several months before the end of their assignment, choosing a colony where they wished to settle. But one day, Parim too saw a light outside the window. She began singing in a foreign, unknown language, and, over time, became aggressive. Soon, Grisha started noticing light signals from an unknown artifact as well. Farut speculated that it was a portal to an alien civilization and began studying the phenomenon. Grisha was very worried about her daughter's behavior, who could watch the play of light outside for hours, but she couldn't do anything about it. Farut hoped that a breakthrough would allow them to remain at the beacon. Bart reminded him of his daughter. If the corporation found out about the breach, the contract would be terminated and the little girl would most likely be subjected to study. Meanwhile, Parim became uncontrollable, and one day she even struck her mother. Grisha demanded that her husband immediately take them away from the beacon, but he persuaded her to endure a little longer. Then Grisha covered all the windows, whereupon the girl threw a full-blown tantrum that ended in a seizure. Later, the woman discovered classified reports about Dr. Avalon. She was furious that Bart hadn't told her what had happened to Ree. At the same time, Farut was tormented by the thought that the artifact might be evidence of extraterrestrial life. He studied Ree's notes, adding his own calculations, without noticing how the situation was deteriorating. One night, Parim sneaked into the tower and, it seemed, invoked the artifact by speaking to it in an unfamiliar language. Farut realized that the artifact intended to take their daughter, yet he still wanted to continue studying the phenomenon. And then Grisha decided to destroy the artifact using combat drones. After the explosion, blue stones appeared in space, which Bart was able to register. Parim returned to her former self, a cheerful and lively little girl, but her parents quarreled bitterly, for Farut's dream of being the first to communicate with aliens was shattered. The incident involving the drones attracted the attention of ISA. Grisha and Farut decided to leave without waiting for an inspection. Bart made a pendant for the girl featuring the symbol of cliffs as a keepsake, and the mother announced that from then on, she would be called Aster. Care, the bomber, is disappointed by this ending. But Bart reminds him that the entire space around the beacon is littered with fragments of the artifact, which he calls relics. Care is utterly stunned. But then a signal arrives announcing the approach of a ship carrying authorities, as informed by Bart. The man decides to blow himself up along with the beacon when it turns out that Bart had long since secured the bomb. He sincerely hopes that in prison, Care will reflect on everything he has learned and develop his ideas. Time rewinds to the moment of Solomon's arrival at the beacon. It becomes clear that he was the one who erased all of Bart's memories, as he considered the AI an accomplice in Farut and Grisha's crime. The man was caught on a transport ship after leaving the beacon, but nothing is known about Grisha and their child. Allegedly following company rules, Solomon deprived the AI of all its experiences, erasing from its memory the images of his loved ones. In the present, Holland and Aster take turns standing guard, waiting for the artifact to appear. One day, Harmony reports that Holland's spaceship is returning to the beacon, but she denies that there is any life on board. Meanwhile, the artifact returns, evoking in Aster childlike memories. She reviews recordings of Farut and Ree, and then recalls that she was born on the beacon. Neither Holland nor Harmony is ready to believe this. Moreover, the AI suddenly detects that a commercial ship is approaching the beacon, requesting permission to speak with Parim. A voice over the speaker identifies as Care, though Bart does not recognize him. Aster permits the ship to dock, and the man confesses that he has already been here and knows her story from Bart. Harmony finds data about his involvement with the organization, the Column, yet Care does not deny it. He distracts the pair with talks about the artifact, while his two accomplices, Finch and Saldana, secretly infiltrate the beacon. Care asks Bart to confirm their acquaintance. At this point, it becomes apparent that the AI remembers nothing prior to its communication with Solomon. Just then, Finch and Saldana attack and bind Aster and Holland. Saldana takes from Holland the key to the beacon and gains control over its communication systems. Finch seizes access to Bart's systems in order to retrieve everything about the artifact, but soon realizes that Bart truly remembers nothing. Both Finch and Saldana oppose Care's methods, as he believes that the artifact has a special connection with Aster and therefore must be dealt with through her. Saldana agrees to give Care 1 hour to try and accomplish the task his own way. Meanwhile, the girl sends a message to QTA stating that everything is fine at the beacon. Care then goes to Aster, who greets him unwelcomingly. At that moment, Bart reports that he has found some files, but to remember everything, he needs to regain control over the system. Care orders Finch to free Bart, and the AI then explains that the artifact was restored after Grisha's shot, but it changed its form. He calculates the time and place of the artifact's next appearance. Meanwhile, Saldana visits Holland, who demonstrates his broken handcuffs. The girl is impressed and tries to persuade the pilot to join as a column where his skills could be of help. However, Helen wants to leave the beacon with Aster, although Aster plans to play along in order to understand what Care really wants. In the meantime, Bart confesses to Harmony that he deceived everyone. He remembered nothing and simply analyzed the available documents of Farouk. He is very angry and feels utterly worthless. At the same time, Finch notices the appearance of two QTA crafts in orbit. Saldana suggests boarding one of the ships and making an escape, but Helen knows they won't have enough time. Harmony wants to initiate negotiations, but Aster firmly declares that she will not surrender to QTA. Adding to the problems, the ambient temperature at the beacon starts rising. Once again, Helen offers Aster a ride on his ship, but she refuses, convinced that the artifact will return to her. The man then decides to leave on his own. Bart assists Helen's escape now that he knows the truth about Solomon. Aster is surprised by Bart's actions. He confesses that he is tired and ready to burn everything to the ground. The temperature continues to rise, causing the drone shield to fail. The group realizes that these are Bart's actions. He is attempting to destroy himself along with the beacon. At this moment, Helen reaches his ship, on board of which still lies Solomon's body, and Bart himself complains about Solomon's actions, which have led him to complete despair and a desire for self-destruction. Aster and Care try to convince Bart not to destroy himself. However, the AI has made up his mind. He says that he was once a loyal friend to Aster, but he will never be that again. He wanted to help people, but now he can't. Meanwhile, the QTA crafts launch an attack on the beacon. Helen finds inside his ship a huge stone that Solomon had taken with him. After Bart has carried out his self-elimination, Harmony notices that the beacon and its surrounding space exert a poisonous effect on anyone with a mind. She convinces Aster to surrender. Meanwhile, Helen throws the stone into space, and Aster watches as the trio who attacked the beacon begin to quarrel. At that moment, the artifact returns. Aster looks at it from the dome, and it seems as if she is returning to her childhood, when little Parim would run to the porthole to greet the alien. Meanwhile, Harmony offers Finch and Saldana her help in operating the beacon. However, the pair rejects her offer. Suddenly, Aster feels unwell and descends, where she is met by a caustic Saldana, indignant at Care's deference toward her. But she is distracted by Harmony, who reports that the newcomers might break through the airlock and enter the beacon. At that very moment, Helen engages in battle with the QTA crafts and destroys them, yet his own ship also malfunctions. Meanwhile, Care tries to compel Aster to communicate with the artifact, although she insists she doesn't know how to do so. Helen returns to the beacon, where the criminal pair is attempting to blackmail him. However, he easily disarms Saldana and refuses to be their pilot. He intends to leave on his own and take Aster with him. Harmony informs him about Bart's death, which leaves the soldier perplexed. The AI explains that the QTA crafts came here because of the artifact and Aster. At that moment, the woman again recalls her childhood interactions with the artifact. Helen urges her not to let Care influence her. Finch and Saldana prepare to leave the beacon, using Aster as leverage against QTA. Harmony warns them against this, promising severe punishment. Meanwhile, Aster offers Helen to fly with her into the artifact. She is convinced that she can do it, and that it will be safe for both of them. Suddenly, technical malfunctions arise on the beacon, associated with the approach of an unusual ship, a ship on which a quantum AI, Aleph, arrives. Harmony reminds everyone that he is her creator, so she won't be able to contend with him. Aster makes a wry comment about the boss personally interfering in his subordinates' affairs and agrees to speak with him. Halen arms himself, though it is useless against Aleph, while Care tries to persuade Aster not to reveal the artifact's secrets to Aleph, as he might use that knowledge to harm humanity. Care steals Helen's pistol as Aster sinks into a vision in which little Parim sees an adult Aster in a beautiful dress, while Helen whispers something into the girl's ear. Meanwhile, Finch and Saldana receive an order from ISA to blow up Aleph's ship, and since they have no explosives, they will have to sacrifice both their ship and themselves. Aleph finally arrives at the beacon and meets with Aster. As expected, he wants her to open the way to the artifact for him, since as an artificial intelligence, he cannot see it himself. In exchange for the information, Aster asks Aleph to secure a pardon for Helen. At that moment, Care catches the pair while they are assembling a bomb. He becomes enraged upon hearing that Aster is speaking with Aleph. Aleph confesses that he can, in principle, save Helen, but he is surprised that the soldier has become so dear to her. He also doubts that Aster controls the artifact rather than the other way around, to which Aster declares that she will take Hallen with her into the artifact because a part of him is already there. Hearing this, Hallen demands an explanation. Aster confesses that she did not mean to frighten him, but that she needs him. Meanwhile, Finch and Saldana prepare to detach and blow up Alepht's ship, but Harmony locks them in the airlock. Under Alepht's orders, she cuts off the oxygen supply. Aleph praises her loyalty and orders her to do the same with care. Aleph himself then goes to meet Aster and Hallen just as Harmony resumes the oxygen supply, saying that Finch and Saldana have been granted forgiveness. She advises taking care and fleeing from the beacon as far as possible. At that moment, Hallen wonders what will become of Aster if she does not like it inside the artifact. She admits that she will once again become a lost child, to which the man suggests that after the mission is over, they should run off to a colony with an ocean and build a home. The woman confesses that she will always choose him. They inform Aleph that they are ready to enter the artifact for one day. They will take Harmony with them to record everything they see and transmit the information to the mothership. However, suddenly Care appears and shoots Aster. The woman hits her head on the railing and falls, blood streaming from her head. Hallen rushes to help her, calling for Harmony. In her eyes, the artifact glows, and little Parim asks the adult Aster about the message. Despite the plot promising an exciting journey into a future where humanity has mastered interstellar travel, the series suffers from a lack of depth in character development. The dialogues are rather incomprehensible, and some plot lines remain unresolved. The acting does not impress either. The visual effects and costume design fail to evoke any particular enthusiasm. In short, the series clearly does not measure up to the highest standards.